We are continuing in the book of marriage, and we have reached the section on the mahr, the dowry. Just before I read, I just want to repeat something that I mentioned for you a few classes ago. Someone asked about a case in which it is not permissible to expose the awrah in the doctors. I want to repeat for you, such as the ultrasound, the image taking a picture of the baby inside of the womb. This is not darura. That's not an emergency. It's not urgent. Uh, it, when I say it's not urgent, then you don't tell me an extraneous case. You don't tell me a case that doesn't happen most of the time to tell me why it's urgent. If you tell me a case that doesn't happen most of the time, you're really proving my point. It's not urgent, as they say. The exception to the rule proves the rule. However, it's not impossible to get this done. All you have to do is, for example, if the woman has a husband, inshallah, she's pregnant, she has a husband. If the woman has a husband, then just show the husband how to do it. It doesn't look like it's complicated. And then close off the area for them, and then they can do it. Or someone who can see her awrah. Yani, who's going to see her awrah? Her husband can see her awrah. But otherwise, not an emergency. Here's a question. What about other areas in the body for ultrasound? So if it's not emergency, because what are we talking about here? We're talking about seeing the awrah, not talking about just it's not the image that's haram. It's not doing the image that's haram. It's the exposure of the awrah that's the problem. So the woman to do this ultrasound, the pregnant woman, doesn't she expose what's below her navel? Even if the nurse or the doctor that's taking care of her is a Muslimah and she's a Muslimah, the Muslimah still cannot see below the navel without darura, without that being urgent. If you can take the image without seeing the awrah, then there's no problem here. What we're saying is you cannot expose the awrah for the image. We're not saying you can't do the image. We're not saying you can't take the picture. It looks like something that can be done without exposing the awrah too. But usually non-Muslims are going to be less than careful in these things. You as a Muslim have to be careful. You're welcome. Okay, so the author says, fossil section. I should say section here. It is recommended وَيُسْتَحَبُّ تَسْمِيَةُ الْمَهْرِ فِي النِّكَاحِ. It is recommended to mention the dowry in the marriage contract. Recommended, so not obligatory. The dowry is neither an integral of the marriage contract, nor is it a condition of the marriage. It is neither an integral nor is it a condition. Rather, it is lazim, it's bound to the marriage contract. It's binding. Yani, it comes along with it. It's like a sub-provision of the marriage contract that's there. That's a God-given right to the woman, in other words. And when we say it's only recommended to mention the dowry, then that implies or insinuates that it's not obligatory. And that's the case. It's not obligatory to mention the dowry. But here the author says, فَإِن لَمْ يُسَمَّ صَحَّ الْعَقْدِ. If it is not mentioned, the contract is valid. Yes, not only is the contract valid if it's not mentioned, she still gets a dowry. So it's not going to be dropped because it's not mentioned. It's just not going to be determined. But she still gets a dowry. وَوَجَبَ الْمَهْرُ بِثَلَاثَةِ أَشْيَاء. So If then the dowry is not mentioned in the contract, when we say the contract means the words of the contract, because marriage contract needs what? Five things. A bride, that's one. A groom, that's two. A guardian, that's three. Two witnesses, that's four. And statements, that's five. The statements, that's the contract. That's the aqd, that's the marriage, yani, the contract. We didn't say dowry because it is not a requirement. If it is not mentioned in the marriage contract, the marriage is valid by consensus, meaning all madhabs. All madhabs say a marriage contract without mention of a dowry is still valid. So if it's not mentioned, then what does she get? She gets, it's called in Arabic, mahrul mithl. Mahrul mithl. This means, one might say, commensurate dowry. Yani, the dowry of a woman like her. She gets the dowry of a woman like her. What does that mean? That means that uh, in the marriage contract, the woman is similar to money. So sometimes you're going to uh, gauge her value to determine what she gets as a dowry. Uh, those might be touchy words for some people. What does that mean? It means you look into several things to determine what she should get. You look into the qualities that she has that make her more or less desirable for marriage. Such as what? Such as beauty and virginity and age and knowledge, like her ability to speak and her education and her family. What did her mother get as a dowry? What did her sisters get as dowries? What did her aunts get as dowries? What do the women of her society get as dowries? So, like this, you will use this to uh, narrow down what she's going to get as a dowry when you didn't agree what the dowry is going to be. So, let's look at the scenarios here. And here, you're going to know how to do a marriage contract for yourself. One of the things I did want to mention to you when we went over the guardians, who gives the woman away according to our summarized list? Her father, then her grandfather, then her brother, then her brother's son, that's her nephew, then her uncle, her father's brother, then her uncle's son, that's her cousin. Then goes to the caliph or the judge. And if there is none, then she and her fiance will appoint an acting judge. Who didn't get mentioned in this list? Did the Imam of the Masjid get mentioned in this list? No, he did not. Is the Imam of the Masjid here mentioned in the book? No, he's not. Is he mentioned in any of the books? He's not. I haven't seen all the books though. But if you find it, let me see it. Because it's not a condition to be the Imam of the Masjid, or that the Imam of the Masjid, your local Imam, has to be involved in your marriage contract. And you cannot discredit someone's marriage contract because the Imam at the Masjid didn't do it. So now let's look at some scenarios. And you're going to know how to do a marriage contract for yourself. We just saw a scenario. I'll repeat it since we're here. You have a bride, a groom, a guardian, two witnesses, and statements. Okay. You already know from previous lesson that the bride does not have to actually be in attendance. She just has to be confirmed. There has to be a confirmed bride for the marriage to be valid. So it's not a condition for her to be in attendance because her attorney is going to be there. Her attorney, I mean by that, her guardian, her father, for instance, he's going to be there, so she does not have to be there. You know there has to be, according to the Shafi'i school, this is a Shafi'i marriage contract here, there has to be 4 men in one meeting, not virtually, rather physically in the same meeting together. Their bodies are in the same place. They have met. They came together. Okay. And there needs to be words said between 2 of these 4 men. 2 of these 4 men are going to observe, and 2 of these 4 men are going to converse because they're going to conduct an agreement. So, there needs to be 2 statements, a proposal and an acceptance. And either one can do either of those. The guardian, who represents the woman, he can propose and then the groom will accept. Or the groom will propose and then the guardian will accept. Now, what we're talking about now, according to what we just read here, and what we're talking about, the scenario I want to give you is that there's no mention of the dowry. That's the first scenario. So how would that look? That would look like those 4 men all together in one meeting. Maybe the sister's there. Usually she would be. And then the guardian, for example, says to the groom, I now give Fulana in marriage to you. And the groom says, I now accept Fulana in marriage. And even right now, I said more words than needs to be said. The guardian will say, I now give Fulana in marriage to you. He has to say, give in marriage, or I now marry Fulana to you. That's valid also. The word of marriage must be in the contract according to Imam al-Shafi'i. Yani the Arabic word nikah, or the word ziwaj. Yani the Arabic word inkah. Inkah means to give in marriage. Or tazweej, which means to give in marriage. Or any of their translations. Like, I now give Fulana in marriage to you. I now marry Fulana to you. I now give Fulana to you in matrimony. That means I marry her to you. So it's not valid according to Ash-Shafi'i to say, I now give Fulana to you. That's not a valid marriage. So the guardian says, I now give Fulana in marriage to you. And the groom says, I accept. Or I now accept Fulana in marriage, for example. And the witnesses observed this. And according to the scenario I just gave you, there's no mention of a dowry. There's no mention of a dowry. This is a valid marriage contract here. What would it look like if the dowry is mentioned? Then let's also change who's proposing and who's accepting. Then, supposing the groom initiates, the proposal is the initiation, the starter. The proposal is the starting one, and then there needs to be an acceptance. So, in case the groom was the one who proposed, he would be saying, for example, give Fulana in marriage to me for the dowry of such and such. And then her guardian says, I accept. Or he says, I now accept to give Fulana in marriage to you. Or I now give Fulana in marriage to you for the dowry of such and such. Or for the dowry that you have mentioned. And the witnesses witness this. This is a valid marriage. Now they are married. And it is possible to agree on a dowry without mentioning it in the marriage contract, without naming it. To agree on a dowry without naming it in the marriage contract, but rather just mentioning it uh, ambiguously by saying, I now give Fulana in marriage to you for the dowry that you have agreed upon. And then the groom says, I accept. Or he says, I now accept Fulana in marriage for the dowry that we have agreed upon. When we say for the dowry they have agreed upon, means they had a discussion already. Usually, if I do a marriage contract for anyone, I will say to them, did you agree on a dowry? Usually they say yes. Sometimes they say no. And then I explain to them this issue here in summary. If you don't mention the mahar in the marriage contract, then you will be deserving of the dowry of a woman like you, for example. And also, you can agree between yourselves about the dowry. And then, if you want to keep it to yourselves, we can just mention it ambiguously by saying, for the dowry that you have agreed upon. But it is sunnah to specifically mention the dowry, like to say, I give my daughter in marriage to you for this ring. For example, there's a ring. Or for $1,000, for example, or whatever it is. That's sunnah because the witnesses will witness that, and then if there's any discrepancy, you can resort back to the witnesses. Question, are those words in the book? You mean the words of the contract? They are not here in the book. Question, word of nikah has to be in Arabic? And no, nikah or its translation. But what the scholars said really about the Arabic is they said it needs the word inkah, not nikah, but inkah, which means giving in marriage or marrying off someone, marrying off the woman, giving her in marriage, or the word, or the tazweej, giving in marriage. Any form of the word, these words, any form of these words, noun or verb, or their translations. The equivalent of marriage, like matrimony or uh, wedlock. I now give fulana to you in wedlock. I now give fulana to you in matrimony. I now give fulana to you in marriage. This is all valid. This is the meaning of inkah or tazweej, giving in marriage. The author says, Amin Wafiq, وَوَجَبَ الْمَهْرُ بِثَلَاثَةِ أَشْيَاء. The dowry will be due by three things. Yani, if a woman were given away in marriage without a dowry, or She told her guardian, give me away without a dowry. Give me in marriage without a dowry. Or like she says, give me away uh, under the condition that I don't have a dowry. Ala alla mahrali. So if she does that, if she is given away like this, she still can get a dowry. وجب المهر بثلاثة أشياء. It is obligatory to pay the dowry if any one of three things take place. Or, yani, this says more words than it needs to say. Should say the dowry is obligatory by three things. That's it. And يفرضه الزوج على نفسه, for the husband to take it upon himself to specify it, to specify it. Yani the husband says, I'll give you such and such as a dowry. And then she accepts. Oh, يفرضه الحاكم, or for the judge to specify it. Then if the judge specifies what that dowry is, then if it is the dowry of what a woman like that takes, uh, then the acceptance of the husband or the wife is not conditional. If the judge is the one specifying what this dowry should be, then the woman's acceptance is not a condition, nor is the man's acceptance a condition. When that dowry is commensurate, it's a dowry of a woman like her. Also, amongst the things that make a woman more or less desirable for marriage is children. أو يدخل بها, or for the husband to consummate the marriage. If he consummates the marriage, he owes her full dowry. فيجب مهر المثل, for she then deserves the dowry of a woman of her status, a woman like her. وليس لأقل الصداق ولا لأكثره حد. The dowry does not have a minimum or a maximum. There is not for the minimum dowry nor for its maximum any limit. Okay, I guess this is fine. Yani, it doesn't have a minimum or maximum. It's valid to be 1 penny, 1 cent, 1 pence. Or, yani, $1,000,000,000,000 if that's a real number. But it's sunnah not to be less than 10 silver coins, nor more than 500 pure silver coins. That's sunnah. And also you can say it's sunnah for the dowry to be easy. In some societies, they make the dowry difficult, and this makes it hard on the men, especially the young men. The young men are the ones who need to get married the most. They need marriage probably more than the older men, I think, is the case. But they're going to be the ones most of the time who don't have a lot of things. So if you make the dowry difficult, if that's a custom of the people, then means it's going to make it difficult for the men at large in any particular society or area to get difficult. And this is a problem. It's going to be a problem for the society or for that, that particular society, any society that practices that. Because then you're going to have men that can't get married till they're like 30, 35, something like that. ويجوز أن يتزوجها على منفعة معلومة. It is, he says, permissible. It was written here valid. It is valid. He didn't say yasihu, it is valid. He said yajuzu. It is permissible. أن يتزوجها على منفعة معلومة, to marry her for a known benefit. It is permissible to marry her for a known benefit. Yeah. I think maybe some of the translators, they feel like the English sentences need more words anyway, just to be clear, but they don't need more words a lot of times. A known benefit is like teaching her how to read, teaching her something like how to sew or recite the Quran, or taking her to Hajj. That's different from the Hanafi school, who said that the dowry must be monetary in particular. Shafi'i school saying can be monetary or can be a benefit, something useful other than actual money. ويسقط بالطلاق قبل الدخول نصف المهر. Half of the dowry is dropped by divorce before consummation. Half of the dowry is dropped by divorce before consummation.
That's right.
Yes?
May I mention something?
Yes, please.
Lately, a bunch of people, they are suggesting for your dowry, I'm taking to Hajj. And we asked Sheikh Samir, it's better not to do that. Don't do that because it's not certain you can go to Hajj. As you know, Allah knows how much they can allow you. It's not something clear for that, but better to mention what is the amount of money
Yes.
that takes you to Hajj.
Yes. Barakallahu fikum. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, that's better to agree on something that's more reliable in terms of more likely to happen, for example. Like just to give her the money and get it over with. As opposed to agreeing to take her to the Hajj, then when maybe you don't have the money now, when you're gonna have the money, etc. Then you better not to get yourself into something like that. I think if person is wise, then you probably won't agree to something like that. Should agree to something that's more tangible and easier to accomplish. Because don't forget, you man who must pay this dowry, that's going to be on you. That's your obligation. So while you might like to get her whatever she wants, whatever she requests of you, don't forget that it's your obligation. So you don't want to die without fulfilling that, or you don't want to have like a difficult time doing it. Barakallahu feekum.
Sorry, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Who want to put himself in that type of predicament? It'll be hard for them to get it. How long? What is the time? Is there a time limit for that?
Well, the dowry is going to be whatever they agreed on. So if they agree when it's due, it will be due when they agree. If they don't agree when it's due, then it's going to be due upon request. So if they just said, for example, I give fulan in marriage to you for the dowry that you agreed upon, without saying, yani, when it's due. And they never agreed when it's due. That's not part of the agreement. When it's due is not part of the agreement. And then he says, I accept. So now, when is it due? Whenever she asks for it.
Can he still ask to pardon him for that too? Can he?
He can ask her to pardon him, or he can do a settlement with her and agree to something else. Amin wa fiq. But Yani, I just want to say an advice. That's her right. So does he want to ask her to pardon him? Yani, meaning, because the meaning of parting him means to say, can you agree that I don't have to pay you any dowry at all? So, yani, that's her right. So, usually the human beings like for their rights to be fulfilled. So maybe would just make some agreement with her, not request from her to drop her right. It's just an advice only. Out of consideration, being considerate. Yani, yeah, it's an obligation on you, man. If she drops it from you, then you'll be relieved of an obligation. But it is her right. Yani, think about your own rights. Okay. So the author says, Fasul section, the wedding banquet. والوليمة على العرس مستحبة. The wedding banquet for getting married, for being newlyweds, is recommended. So walima, this word walima, it is the wedding banquet. Some people might use the word walima for any banquet or party, but it is originally it's the wedding banquet in particular, al walima. And it is done by providing anything to eat. It's not a condition that is fancy and laham meat and everything. It's not a condition. Could be simple. Some dates, for example. وَالْإِجَابَةُ إِلَيْهَا وَاجِبَةٌ إِلَّا مِنْ عُذْرٍ. And responding to the invitation is obligatory unless one has an excuse. Yes. So, obligatory because of a hadith that the one who does not respond to the banquet invitation has disobeyed Abul Qasim. Abul Qasim is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The one who does not respond to the wedding banquet invitation has disobeyed Abul Qasim sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa azwajihi wa ansarihi wa dhurriyatihi wa sallam. So that means it's obligatory. Unless you have an excuse. Illa min udhr, except for an excuse. Like, for example, you have to work or something. Maybe you are sick. Some excuse you have. But if you don't have an excuse, you cannot not go. And if the party lasts for 3 days, it's not obligatory to attend all days. Yeah, for more than 1 day, for example, then it's not obligatory to attend again after the first time. This document needs new reformatting. Okay. Next section is about equality between the wives. One of the very interesting chapters, but we have very little time left for the lesson. So as much as I want to start this, probably we should stop here so that we can handle this section from the top next week, inshallah. So do you have any question I can answer for you?